Welcome to Know Before You Go for the fourth Sunday of Easter. My name is Father Brian Walker. A little over 45 years ago, I entered religious life. And when I entered religious life, it was a different time, very different than it is today. And I remember being just so enthralled with the idea of entering religious life. I had never really lived away from home for any amount of time. And this time I was going to have a totally new experience. I was sent to teach grade school in Indianapolis, Indiana, and it was an experience. I had second and third graders, and they were just so darling, but at the same time, they were always so afraid of this great big black man who was standing before them. It was an interesting time. And one of the brothers that I was sent to teach with was a brother who came from a farm in Michigan. And it was such an interesting experience. And one day he asked if I would go with him home. He was going to take some of his seventh graders on an excursion. His family lived on a farm, and they were going to have an experience. And I thought, wow, this would be a great experience for me because I had never really ever been on a farm. I am from Chicago, from the big city, and I know very little about the farm, and I know very little about farm animals. So I decided that I would go, and it was an unbelievable experience. I got to see how they would milk the cows, how the cows knew when to go and where to go. But one thing I found out was that it was such an experience because all of these things that were happening on the farm were things that were just knowledgeable. They just came to pass. But one of the things that I noticed also was the fact that there were these unique smells coming from the city. We didn't have smells like that, but these were very unique smells, smells of animals. And I found myself walking into the barn and just saying, oh my gosh, I can't take it. And of course, him growing up on the farm, what? What is it? What's wrong? And I just didn't know how to say that it just smelled awful. But it was one of the things that I learned that became an experience. Today we celebrate Good Shepherd Sunday. Today we celebrate Jesus as the shepherd tending his flock. I know very little about sheep, and I knew when I went back then very little about cows. But one thing I knew is that they had these unique smells. They had these very unique smells. And I always think about the Good Shepherd, where he throws the sheep over his shoulders and he carries them. And I remember thinking to myself, my God, they must smell awful. We've heard recently where the Holy Father says, if you're going to be a good minister in the church, you have to smell like the sheep. In other words, you have to be among them. It's not about washing your hands and doing all this stuff to stay clean, but it's being one with the sheep, being one with the people that we serve. And I understood that more and more recently, what it means to smell like the sheep. And it's not always a good smell. It's not always a good look. And I think about the times that I visited the Holy Land, and I went to the place in Bethlehem where the shepherds were sleeping among their sheep, taking care of them to make sure that they would be taken care of, that they would not be set any harm. Here we are called as ministers, not only those who are ordained, not only those who profess vows, not only those who live in religious life, but each and every one of us been called to take care of one another. How do we do that? How do we take care of one another? The thing is that we cannot be afraid to be amongst our sisters and brothers. We cannot be afraid of the smells. We cannot be afraid of the different things that happen. Why? Because our brothers and sisters need us. We have to be among the flock. May God truly give us strength to understand that it's not about the dirt. It's not about the smells. It's not about any of those things, but it's about being one with the people. So much is going on in our world today. So much unrest, so much war, so much tension. And yet we still seem to be living on the edge. But everybody's afraid to be one with their sisters and brothers. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Let the world know who you stand for and why. To truly be one with those who suffer, to truly be one with those who are hurting, to truly be one with those who need your help. That's what this is all about. It's about setting an example. Jesus is the good shepherd. We too are called to be shepherds. We too are called to be one with the people of God. May God strengthen us on our journey to be faithful to our Christian commitment, to be faithful to our service one to another.